Northview!
There are times in life that make you think about what's really important, and I think right now is a time in our lives that we can take a closer look at how we respond to unforeseen circumstances, things that are out of our control, and it leaves us confused and trying to figure out how to make sense of it all. Maybe you find yourself in one of those camps today. Maybe you find yourself confused. Maybe you find yourself frightened. Maybe you find yourself in a place where you're just not sure what's happening. And I just want you to know that you're not alone and you're in good company. And so we can all find our foundation in that right there. We're all battling with things that are unseen and the circumstances that are going on around us. But whenever we feel like there's a threat to our comfort, we have these kind of snap responses that we default to. And I want to challenge some of those default responses today. These are responses that are outside of how Christ would respond. And so I want to look at how we're to reflect and focus on Jesus and also respond to some of these emotions, some of these feelings that some of us may be having today. I want to ask you, are you naturally afraid? Are you naturally just a person that is scared of things? You know, like fearful. Like you just kind of walk around and you're just anxious and worried about different things that you probably shouldn't be worried about. I have friends that are seriously afraid of things like clowns. I don't understand it. I'll be honest. I'm not sure I see it, but hey, that's not for me to decide. I've got friends that are deathly scared of clowns. One of my children is afraid of the dark. Now, they're not afraid of the dark. They're afraid of what could be in the dark, right? But they're afraid of the dark. They need a light on when they go to sleep. You see, everyone has something that they're afraid of. Everyone has something that makes them fearful. For me, I am afraid of snakes. I'm not afraid to admit it. Snakes are the worst. You will never convince me otherwise, and I will never want to be anywhere near them. Snakes are awful. I'm afraid of snakes. You will see me running very fast away from any snake that you see, unless I have some type of shovel or object to take care of said snake with. I'm also afraid of failure. I know that's a little deeper than clowns and snakes, but I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of not succeeding. I'm afraid of what people might think of me if I fail. And that's something that is kind of a deep-rooted fear that I have. See, that's what I would like to call a core fear. You know, I'm scared that my failure is actually tied to my worth. If I fail, then I'm not worth as much to other people. And that's something that I've struggled with my entire life. And so fear is a real thing. Fear is something that we all deal with and challenge us depending on what stage of life you're in. You know what? Fears are going to come and go as you continue to grow up. But here's what I want you to focus on. You see, fear seems to escalate when things around us are uncertain. See, fear seems to pop its head up when we feel like things are out of our control. And so it reminds me of a passage in Mark chapter 4. Jesus and his disciples were on a boat traveling to the next town when a storm came up and life all of a sudden became uncertain. You see, they were in this boat and the storm is going crazy and Jesus is asleep. He's asleep in the boat. He's just resting. It was a long day, needed some Z's, and he's asleep. And his disciples are freaking out. His disciples are like, what is going on? Well, how can he just sleep? How can he just lay there? We're going to die. The disciples were fearing for their life. And here's what it says in verse 39 and 40. When Jesus woke up, he rebuked the wind and said to the waves, "Silence, be still." And suddenly the wind stopped, and there was a great calm. And then he asked them, "Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith?" When everything around you seems crazy, Jesus has the power to make everything still. That's who Jesus is. And his disciples still were learning that. They had spent time with Jesus, but they're still learning who he is and how much power that he actually had. And his disciples lost sight of the fact of who Jesus was. They decided they were going to focus on their fear of drowning and dying in the storm, and they lost it. They were going nuts. They let the fear control their emotions and their responses. And they woke Jesus up, and Jesus said, "Are you serious right now?" And he said, "Wind, stop. Storm, stop. Silence, be still." And Jesus' words stopped everything. The storm immediately stopped. And I'm sure in that moment, the disciples were like, felt a little sheepish, like, I can't believe we were freaking out like that. I can't believe we made so much of this storm. This is so like me sometimes, and maybe it's like you too. When life gets uncertain and I start to focus on my fear instead of Jesus, I lose sight of who he is. I lose sight of the fact that he's in control and that my fear doesn't change my circumstances. It actually just makes everything a whole lot worse. And I love this passage of scripture that helps me when I'm overcome with fear and doubt. 2 Corinthians 12:9, it says, each time he said, "My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I am glad to boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ can work through me." You see, God works in our lives when we're at our weakest because it elevates him to the rightful place in our lives that he deserves. Right? When we're weak, it's an opportunity for Jesus to be the person that Jesus is. It actually puts him in his rightful place in our lives. It's not about us trying to be strong when we are fearful. It's about acknowledging our fear, giving it over to God, and allowing him to be our strength in the midst of the uncertain times, in the midst of the fear. See, when everything around us is uncertain, he is certain. When you are fearful, he is your strength. When you are scared, he is your rock, your foundation. And when you don't know what else to do, he is near. Right? Jesus is near at all times, no matter what you're going through. So in your discussion time, don't hold back, be real, be authentic, and trust that the people in this group want what's best for you.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching our YouTube